Hey folks, Adam Savage here. You know, these new cars, they're getting so complicated with all their electronics and sensors, but there's one part they still can't do without. The torque converter. That's right, it's a vital part of your automatic transmission, and when it goes bad, you're gonna know it. Today we're diving deep into the 9 telltale signs of a failing torque converter. We'll cover everything from slipping gears to weird noises and even that dreaded check engine light. Stick around, because knowing these symptoms could save you a whole heap of trouble and a whole lot of money. If your car's been acting up, it might be one of these 9 symptoms. Let's get started. Alright, let's talk about that sinking feeling you get when you hit the gas and your engine revs up, but the car doesn't respond like it should. It's like you're stuck in neutral, even though the gear selector says drive. This, my friends, is a classic sign of a slipping transmission, and you know what's often the culprit? That's right, a failing torque converter. You see, the torque converter is like the middleman between your engine and the transmission. It uses fluid to transfer power, and when it starts to wear out, that fluid pressure drops, causing those slippery shifts. You might notice it most when you're accelerating, especially uphill. It's like your car just can't find the right gear. Now, before you panic, a slipping transmission doesn't always mean a complete overhaul. Sometimes, it could be as simple as low transmission fluid. So first things first, pop the hood and check that fluid level. And remember, we're looking at the transmission fluid, not the engine oil. Trust me, your wallet will thank you in the long run. You know how your car has a temperature gauge for the engine? Well, your transmission generates heat too, and if it gets too hot, it's a recipe for disaster. One main culprit is a failing torque converter. It transfers power from the engine to the transmission. If it fails, it can cause excessive heat buildup. You might not have a separate gauge, but there are signs. A burning smell is one. That's not a good sign. It could be overheating fluid, or erratic transmission behavior. Harsh shifting, slipping gears, or limp mode. You don't want to drive in limp mode. If you suspect overheating, pull over and cool down. Ignoring it could lead to costly repairs. Alright, have you ever been driving along, especially at low speeds, and you feel this shuddering or shaking coming from your car? It's like you're driving over rumble strips, even though the road is smooth. Well, my friends, this shuddering sensation, especially if it happens during acceleration or when the torque converter is locking up, could be a sign of a failing torque converter. You see, inside that torque converter, there's a clutch that locks up at higher speeds to improve fuel efficiency. But when that clutch starts to wear out, it can cause a shuddering or vibration, especially at those lower speeds when the converter is constantly engaging and disengaging. Now, I'm not talking about a little vibration here. This is a noticeable shudder that you can feel through the whole car. It's like your car is having a seizure, and trust me, it's not a pleasant experience. If you're feeling this shuddering, don't ignore it. It's a sign that something is wrong, and it's only going to get worse and more expensive if you let it go. Remember folks, a little preventative maintenance goes a long way. You know that old saying, silence is golden? Well, when it comes to your car, any new or unusual noises are usually a bad sign. And if you start hearing strange noises coming from your transmission, especially a whining or humming sound, it could be a sign that your torque converter is on its way out. Think about it. That torque converter is full of moving parts, and when those parts start to wear out, they can make all sorts of racket. A whining noise, especially when the engine is revving, could be a sign of worn bearings inside the torque converter. Now, I'm not talking about a little hum here. This is a distinct whining or humming sound that changes pitch as you accelerate or decelerate. It's like your car is trying to tell you something is wrong, and trust me, you don't want to ignore it. If you're hearing these noises, don't just crank up the radio and pretend it's not happening. That's like ignoring a toothache, it's only going to get worse. The longer you drive with a noisy torque converter, the more damage you're doing to the transmission. Get it checked out right away. You know how important oil changes are for your engine? Well, transmission fluid is just as important for your transmission. It lubricates all those moving parts, keeps things cool, and helps transfer power. And if your transmission fluid is dirty or contaminated, it can be a sign of a failing torque converter. Think about it, the torque converter is constantly churning that transmission fluid, and over time that fluid can become contaminated with metal shavings, clutch material, and other debris. This gunk can clog up the torque converter, causing it to overheat, slip, and eventually fail. Now, you might be thinking, how do I know if my transmission fluid is dirty? Well, it's actually pretty easy to check. Most cars have a dipstick for the transmission fluid, just like the one for your engine oil. Pull out the dipstick and take a look. Fresh transmission fluid should be a bright red color. If it's dark brown or black, or if it smells burnt, that's a sure sign that it's time for a change. Remember folks, preventative maintenance is key when it comes to your transmission. Don't wait until your transmission is spitting out black sludge to take action. You know how when you start your car the engine revs up a little before the transmission engages? That's called the stall speed. It's the RPM at which the engine can spin the torque converter without the car moving. And if you notice that your stall speed has increased, it could be a sign of a failing torque converter. Think about it. The torque converter is responsible for transferring power from the engine to the transmission. It does this by using a fluid coupling. When the engine spins, it spins the impeller inside the torque converter, which in turn spins the turbine, which is connected to the transmission. The fluid between the impeller and turbine is what transfers the power. Now, when the torque converter starts to wear out, the fluid coupling can become less efficient. This means that the engine has to rev higher to generate enough torque to spin the turbine and get the car moving. Ignoring an increased stall speed could lead to further damage to your transmission, and potentially leave you stranded on the side of the road. Listen up folks, because this one hits you right in the wallet. If you've noticed your car suddenly turning into a gas guzzler, and you're filling up more often than usual, a failing torque converter could be the culprit lurking under the hood. You see, that torque converter plays a crucial role in fuel efficiency, especially at higher speeds. It has a lock-up clutch that engages to create a direct mechanical connection between the engine and transmission, reducing slippage and improving fuel economy. But here's the kicker. When that torque converter starts to go bad, that lock-up clutch might not engage properly, or it might slip intermittently. This means your engine has to work harder to maintain speed, burning more fuel in the process. Now, I'm not saying that a drop in fuel economy is a surefire sign of a bad torque converter. There are other things that can cause it, like a clogged air filter, bad spark plugs, or even low tire pressure. So it's always a good idea to rule out those common culprits first. But if you've checked everything else and your fuel economy is still in the toilet, it's time to take a closer look at that torque converter. Alright, let's talk about that awkward moment when you're trying to merge onto the highway. You hit the gas, and nothing. Your car hesitates, the engine revs up, but the transmission takes its sweet time to shift gears. That, my friends, is called delayed shifting, and it's a telltale sign that your torque converter might be on its last legs. You see, the torque converter is responsible for transferring power from the engine to the transmission smoothly and efficiently. But when it starts to wear out, that fluid coupling inside can become sluggish, causing those frustrating delays in shifting. It's like trying to stir a pot of thick gravy with a flimsy spoon. It takes a lot more effort, and the response is slow and unpredictable. So, if you're experiencing this issue, don't wait until you're stuck on the side of the road with a transmission that's gone kaput. Alright folks, we all dread that moment when the check engine light illuminates on our dashboard. It can mean anything from a loose gas cap to a catastrophic engine failure. Did you know a failing torque converter can also trigger that light? Modern cars have sensors monitoring engine and transmission performance. Ignoring the check engine light is like ignoring a siren. You might get lucky, or you could be heading for a major breakdown. Get the code red and start narrowing down the potential culprits. Well, there you have it folks. The 9 telltale signs that your torque converter might be heading south. Remember, that torque converter is a vital part of your automatic transmission, and ignoring these warning signs could lead to costly repairs down the road. Now I know dealing with car problems can be a real pain, but trust me, a little preventative maintenance goes a long way. Regular transmission fluid changes, inspections, and addressing those minor issues early on can save you a whole heap of trouble and expense in the long run. And hey, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more car repair tips and tricks, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Drive safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more car repair tips.